Dispelling human attachment is harder than expelling curses. Gojo's comment referred to the tears and sobs that resulted from their confiscation of the cursed corpse. From underground they couldn't see it, but the sun must have sunk towards the horizon. If they had used force, the wound in the woman's heart might never have healed. So their only choice had been to wait until she was ready to relinquish the doll herself. Gojo had balked when Nanami told him that at least he could carry something if he wasn't going to do any other work. But then he took the bag from Nanami. Inside was the cursed corpse that they had taken from the mother. "Nanami, this bag's too heavy," Gojo complained. "Well, we can't just toss it. Besides, that doll is an important lead. If we compare the cursed energy in it to residuals, however faint, they'll point us in the right direction." "I guess so. It seems the curse user sold this thing intended to hide all traces, but yeah, it's fake. He's really careless." As expected, they found the curse user's hideout easily. It was in a very old part of the underground city. They had turned down a path branching away from the open area of the street and leading to a basement floor of a building, then zigzagged in a complicated way behind some stairs. They found themselves in a space that might once have been an illegitimate drinking establishment. Such a poor location wasn't suited to a legitimate business, but would have been perfect for something dodgy. It was hidden from human eyes with a technique that used the same principle as a curtain. Nanami and Gojo had followed the residuals, and the traces were as easily detected as an unbroken trail of footsteps. "I can tell this guy's short on help. It's strange that a third-rate curse user could establish a base so boldly without anyone bringing down the hammer," Gojo commented. "Cursed spirits concentrate in cities, and sorcerers distribute their activities accordingly, which inevitably leads to neglect of the outlying areas. We could just let a seedy curse user like this go without it causing any major problem," speculated Gojo. "But the seller preyed upon that poor woman. So we gotta bring down the hammer." Together, they kicked in the curse user's door. The wood and hinges screeched and dust flew. The sorcerers made a rude entrance worthy of a yakuza movie. The one they had taken to calling the doll maker shot to his feet. Who are you?" "If we look like customers, you need an optometrist, bottom feeder," Gojo said. "We're sorcerers. Proper ones. Unlike you." Gojo's tone bore an unusual degree of contempt. The room that they had just barged into gave a new meaning to the word tacky. The interior decor was heavy-handed and indiscriminate. It was impossible to tell whether the theme was Japanese, Chinese, or Korean. Fake mummies and a guardian lion, a viper in formaldehyde, painted black mask resembling something that would be sold in a souvenir shop. The attire of the room's master, the doll maker, topped it all. His clothes, made of cheap fabric, were vaguely reminiscent of something an onmyoji or a Shinto priest might wear. In addition, he wrapped himself, as if with bandages, in crude seals that could only have contained minuscule amounts of magic, if any at all. He looked like he was wearing a costume. Everything about his appearance was an insult to real sorcerers. His clients might be regular people, but it was laughable to think that he could fool them. "Sorcerers? I see. You're sorcerers too." "What do you mean, too? Surely you don't count yourself among sorcerers," Gojo exclaimed. Nanami probably felt the same way. The crease in his forehead was deep, and it expressed a visceral hatred for the dollmaker's existence and its crimes. He wasn't holding a weapon, but he took a stance that would allow him to engage in battle at any moment. The dollmaker was a fake sorcerer, but even a regular person would have found Nanami, a grade 1 sorcerer, intimidating. It would be foolish or crazy to take him lightly. Why are you here?" stammered the dollmaker. "If you don't know why we're here already, then just shut up. Playing dumb isn't cute," said Gojo. I don't have any time, no time at all." "Neither do we. It's almost 4 o'clock. This may be a business trip, but we shouldn't be working outside of regular business hours," Nanami replied. Nanami and Gojo advanced together towards the dollmaker. If the two stayed side by side and blocked the door of the cramped room, the dollmaker would have nowhere to run. They had him cornered. The dollmaker didn't have many options. He could play it reckless and try to flee past the two sorcerers. He could put up a crude resistance by swinging a blunt object, or he could submit to capture. In the end, The doll maker didn't choose any of these. "Help me!" he screamed. "Huh?" Nanami and Gojo were taken off guard by this outburst. I'm so glad you're here." The doll maker dropped to his knees and grabbed onto Nanami's legs. "I was actually going to look for you myself, for real, sorcerers. I mean, you gotta help me. If you want money, I have some saved up, so please." That's when Nanami and Gojo noticed something wrong. The doll maker certainly wasn't worthy of being called a curse user. A single first-year student at Jujutsu High, never mind Nanami, could easily suppress him. That's how weak the doll maker was as a sorcerer or curse user. Too weak. The cursed energy in the cursed corpse wasn't strong, and the cursed technique was simple, so the doll was no more than a sham that could respond mechanically to human prompts. The doll maker, however, was too weak to have even done that. It was hard to imagine that the man before their eyes, the man clinging to Nanami's legs, was a curse user, even at a low level. Nonetheless, he was indeed emanating an amount of cursed energy equal to that of the cursed corpse, which led them to a specific conclusion. "Nanami," Gojo began. Nanami understood. "We thought he was cursing people for sport, but it turns out that he's a victim himself." As if those comments served as a signal, a change occurred in the man. He ripped off many seals wrapped around his clothes. Several arm-like appendages shot out from underneath like whips. Nanami made a small movement as though to dodge, but suddenly changed tack. As he moved, a few small bug-like creatures flew at him from the tips of the swinging arms. Evading their attacks, Nanami whipped off his suit jacket and used it to bat down the bug-like things. The dollmaker's body was transforming into a doll of flesh. Human and doll fused into a contorted mass. His neck and left arm retained some semblance of their original form, but the left side of his chest and below were horribly deformed. A doll's head, twisted in aggravation, was biting into his heart. Several wooden skeletal structures, sharp as bamboo spears, intersected and pierced his flesh as over 70% of his body transformed into a doll, giving him the silhouette of a spider. "Ah, help, money, money! I've got money, so exercise this, get this thing out of me!" The dollmaker was raving with pain and fear as the countless arms swung like whips. They had the force of storm winds, strong enough to pulverize bones. But the arms weren't nearly as frightening as the swarm of insects swelling from inside his stomach and crawling over his skin. No. Looking more closely, Nanami realized that the countless bugs were in fact small cursed corpses. As they devoured the doll maker's body and the corpses of babies hidden under his clothes, they gradually grew and multiplied. "A cursed corpse factory and self-generating cursed corpses," Nanami said. Even now, the cursed corpses were slowly reproducing as if weaving hair and flesh. There was no way to determine the degree to which they had devoured the man's body, and that answered the final question they had. "I've been wondering what happened to the flesh left over after you used the skin from the corpses to make cursed dolls for the parents, but now I see you were using it to replace your own," said Gojo. Nanami concurred. "I was also wondering how he made such sophisticated-looking cursed corpses." "They aren't the kind of thing a modern-day curse user could just dash off," Gojo said. "He's probably the remnant of an old line of sorcerers who pulled a cursed tool out of storage, or found an unmanageable cursed object." "So you established a complicated pay-by-mail system. At first, probably just to rake in cash. And that alone proves your dishonest motives. Claiming extenuating circumstances simply won't cut it," Nanami said to the doll maker with a sigh that expressed immense exhaustion. "That thing devours the living as well as the dead, so I bet you really had to keep your nose to the grindstone." As he said this, Gojo's shoulders slumped, as if he had simply run out of energy. A doll that feasted on human flesh to produce more dolls. And a doll maker who gathered dead bodies to replace his own consumed flesh. He couldn't keep up and eventually became possessed by that doll. None of it should have existed in this world. Nanami and Gojo wore the same look on their faces. It expressed grim resignation. They had accepted the harsh reality, and it didn't bode well for the doll maker wheedling for mercy. Huh? No, help me, please, he begged. Huh? No can do. Surely you know that, Gojo said. If it hadn't gotten to this point already, Werry might have removed it, but Nanami reached behind his back, where a large, hatchet-like blade was strapped. This was the weapon he bore. After abandoning his life as a salaryman, he had become a sorcerer and taken up his righteous weapon. Nanami pointed it at the dollmaker. Wait, what's that? The dollmaker cried. 7-3. Nanami flourished his blade. My curse technique divides my target to forcibly create a weak spot at the ratio point of 7-3. That holds for both living things and non-living things. You're a fusion of both, so it'll treat you as a single object. What are you talking about? Nanami was divulging his curse technique. This was part of a binding vow that allowed him to amplify his curse technique's effect. Revealing information carried a disadvantage, but also increased attack strength. In other words, Nanami was announcing his desire for maximum damage. I do pity the state you're in, but from the start you were clearly using dangerous sorcery to make some dough, Nanami said. Hey, you're kidding, right? I'm human. What would a sorcerer do against a human being with that blade? It's too late for you. No. You can do that. I brought the dead back to life. I offered comfort to the human heart. I saved them. Only I could do that, but now you're going to kill me? You can barely talk, and you're losing control of your conscious self, replied Nanami, and even worse. Nanami brandished his blade with precise control in the cramped space. To the dollmaker's eyes, his action was clearly full of murderous intent. With his back against the wall, there was little he could do. Fear and frustration seized him. This is because you scattered curses among other people, thereby making a curse of yourself, Nanami said. Nanami's words cut the threads of the man's tension, which were already about to snap. I'll kill you. The dollmaker flung himself at Nanami. He flailed his remaining human arm and countless other doll appendages. Nanami didn't flinch. He uncoiled like a spring, parting the air with his blade. Act like an adult and take responsibility for your actions. One stroke. The dollmaker never even released his final gasp. The curse technique, amplified by revealing information, segmented the dollmaker's body at precisely the ratio of 7-3. Nanami struck downward at an angle from the shoulder, exactly between the human and doll-like parts, which then flopped to the floor. The severed doll body, which had probably been feeding on the dollmaker's soul, beat out an inorganic, rattling clamor and eventually fell still. With faint sounds that didn't form words, the dollmaker stopped moving. Like a doll with severed strings. Then, as if a cord had been severed, the small, bug-like cursed corpses stopped moving, one after another. Perhaps the flesh and blood, the unchanged portion that Nanami had severed from the doll, was able at the last moment to die a human death. Nanami's single strike had returned the man's humanity, though it was a relief for no one. Well done, Nanami! Gojo slapped him on the shoulder, and Nanami swung his arms in circles as if to work out the kinks. It would have been easier if you had done it, Nanami said. But your curse technique was more suited to giving him a human death. I don't want to be suited to that kind of job. For now, let's lower a curtain and request a cleanup. Handling stiffs isn't my area, said Gojo. You barely did anything this time. Nanami loosed a long sigh, and the room fell silent. The guardian lions, fake mummies, and vipers in formaldehyde remained enshrined in the room, which now had no master. Had the room's former master been a human? Or a doll? By the time the sorcerers arrived, that was unclear. However, the bright blood running across the floor seemed to prove that he was human. Eventually, that too was wiped away, as if nothing had ever happened. And in the end, only silence remained in that remote underground den. Alright, y'all. That is section 5 of chapter 2, and we're gonna keep it pushing. I'm so sorry. I know that there is a lot to unpack here. Like, ooh, the implications. We got Curse Corp's factory? Wasn't Yaga special graded for that? Post-mortem? I mean, what are the implications here? Anyway, like I said, we're gonna keep it pushing. The next section is the last section of this chapter, so my analysis will be coming after that. In which case, you might just get more analysis than you bargained for. But of course, until then, I'll see you in the next one.